for me, it was a very long time of singlehood. So maybe that's why someone said I could share my experiences better. It's an honor to share things I've learned along the way with the others. And, it's for me, it was a very long time of singlehood. So maybe that's why someone said I could share my experiences better. So I'll try and squeeze in everything I have within the time that have been allotted. Okay. I'll try and be brief. And if you feel I should expound on something, feel free to hold up your hand and tell me to say more about something, whatever it is that you want me to say more about. But I want to say this: being single is a very important part of our lives, and I think many of us, if we fail to use the time of being single well, while we are, then when we move out of that place of being single, then things can become troublesome. And we see these things happening around us all the time. Though some of them we never realize that they happen because someone didn't do well while they were single. So let's dig in. How do we best be single? I just have a few points that I want to pull out, that I try to, ever since I remember this, these are things that I've been thinking about. How can a person best live their time as single? It's good that we have so many single people here, and some not fully single, some who are fully single, some who are single but dating. So how best can we use our single time? I think the first thing that we all need to do with our time alone, I call it being alone because you're not yet attached in a way that is heavily binding. If you're single, the first thing I think you should need to do with yourself is to know yourself. You need to get in touch with who you are. My wife, I think on her WhatsApp status, it has been on for such a long time. Ignorance of scripture is ignorance of self. I think there is a lot of wisdom in here. I wonder where she got it. I've never asked her about it, but every time I look up on WhatsApp, that's the first thing I see. Ignorance of scripture is ignorance of self. So many of us, we do not know ourselves. So we come out of the teenage years and we have all this time of our teenage life that was defined by the friends that we had. That's really what defines adolescence so much. Our character, our behavior being defined heavily by the friends that we make in school. So we have our social groups, peers, and all kinds of things, and we get into all sorts of sometimes good stuff, sometimes bad stuff, but all of it is being defined by the friends that we have. And then we get into university, coming out of adolescence, and it's all the stress of books. Then you come out of school and sometimes you get into work life, and then you're defined by the work that you're doing. And many of us, sometimes we fail to get in touch with who we really are. Our personalities. We are not really, sometimes people are not aware of what they like, what they don't like, what your values are, let me just say something a little more about values. Values are things that I think define us so much. And going on into the rest of our lives, when eventually I value love, And when I see a situation where the love isn't being shown, I always, it's something that really breaks me. These are things I've gotten to know about myself over time. I've built into myself a place where I'm devoted to my friends, a place where I would give up a lot just for my friends. These are values that I hold dear. Values like marriage. We need to look into ourselves and begin to build our values. What are the kind of things that would stand for? How strongly do you hold on to your Catholic identity? How much do you hold on to it? How far do you put that identity? Would you put it over your tribal identity? Or would your tribal identity come second to this? What about your work? What did you do if you ever got a job? If you are faced with this situation where you must do something that is shady, would you choose? We need to start building the right kind of values during this time. Because eventually, if you go and start mixing with someone else's values, or lack thereof of values, maybe in the person you will eventually marry, there could be chaos when you meet things that you'd never do. Knowing your values will help you to know who you choose for marriage. And I think, a lot of people get into marriage and they end up being shocked by things, all because they never got to know themselves. It's important that we take time to know ourselves. Take an online personality test. Ask your friends what kind of person you are, what they know about you, and learn to be honest with who you are, so that if there are things that need to be adjusted, you can work on them. Build your values. Take time, learn how to tell the truth. I used to think it comes naturally, but I realized it does. There are lots of things about life that don't just come naturally. We have to learn them, we have to build ourselves. So, get to know yourself before other people define you. Before you fall in with people you wouldn't want to at some point down the road. Get to know who you are and what you would do and what you wouldn't do. That's one, knowing yourself. Two, I think it's very good to use the time of singleness to build relationships. It's important because eventually among those relationships should come the person you'll eventually marry. I find it disturbing for people to marry total strangers. But I remember someone telling me about marriage. He had just read a book from Miles, I think one of Miles Monroe's books about preparing for marriage. And he says it's about building intimacy, building friendships, and as the circle of those friends, the tighter the circle is, you have the crowd around you, you have the few around you, then eventually out of the 10 or so friends, there is that one person, of the opposite sex, I believe, whom you finally marry. So we need to build relationships all across. You build professional relationships, build relationships at church, have friends all over, and get to know people. These relationships to build open our lives, open our eyes and our minds to different kinds of people, different lifestyles, different values, like what you said. Get to know other people and truly care about those people. Use this time to build relationships, the friendships around you, and most importantly, build your relationship with God. More than anything, build a relationship with God. And if ignorance of Scripture is ignorance of self, then ignorance of God is also ignorance of self. Honestly, it's only God who can reveal us to us. He made us. He knows what He made us to be. He knows exactly what He built us into. So it would be good if we knew Him so that He can reveal us to us. Strengthen your relationship with God. Learn how to pray. Learn how to fast. Go for a few overnights. Even if you don't like them, like I do, I don't like overnights. Go for a few. Build a relationship with God. Learn how to not miss Mass on Sundays. Learn how to go for Mass daily. Learn how to pray, how to read the Scriptures. marry anyway. He's the one, he knows every heart, he knows each and every person's future. So I'm very sure if you know him well, if you're close to him, he will show you who would work best for you when you finally get to marry. So build relationships, and that brings me to the other thing, serving God. I'm hoping that all of us, but since we all came out of serving God from campus, I want to hope and believe that we are still serving, even now out of campus. Use this time to serve God. Use this time while you're still single to put time into just bringing other people to Christ, sharing your relationship with God with others, telling others about the Lord. Use this time to serve God. Join a choir if you can sing. Join a prayer group and go out and serve. When you eventually get married, your time will be divided. Your first ministry will always have to be your spouse. And this is the time, while you're single, to give time to others. Personally, I no longer can't just go and spend nights away from home. I need to discuss it with my wife and get permission from her before I even consider going out for anything. All my ministries, she has to know, and she has to give her yes to them. So, but before that, I could go anywhere, anytime. Whoever called me, I'd go. Whoever needed me, I'd go. But now it's no longer the case. Moreover, I live very far away from Kampala, so it's not so easy. So use the time you're alone to serve God. If you're not doing it, please find a place. So these two things, your relationship with God and serving. And get to know God at a personal level. Don't just be one of those Catholics who are Catholics because they were born Catholic. Be a Catholic because you actually know God. And the other point is to build yourself. This is the time. So I said, before the teenage years, you are defined by your parents, maybe the family you are from. They determined everything for you. Then in your teenage years and the adolescence, really it was friends. For better or for worse, it was friends who defined who you are. University books always define us, and if we served, maybe the relationships we started building there, friends also still. Now it's time to build yourself. Build yourself in all the dimensions that are important. Let's start with your character. Build your character. What kind of person would you like to be? What kind of person would you want people to look at you and say, so and so is this? What would your friends say behind your back? What would your employers, what would you want them to say behind your back? Your clients, your family, even your spouse, what eventually do you want them to say? What kind of person are you? Were you trustworthy? Can you build a character of trustworthiness into yourself? Can you turn yourself into a person who wouldn't lie? Can you turn yourself into a person who's steadfast, who's, who would stay in a friendship, in a relationship, and not talk about your friends behind their back? Can you build yourself into that kind of person, please? We need to build ourselves, our character. We need to be better people. If there are things about you that people complain about, start paying attention to them instead of getting angry, Work on making yourself into the best person that you can be. I think it was Matthew Kelly. I listened to one of his teachings, and he says being a saint is about being the best, the best version of ourselves. So it's not about changing who you are, but being the best version of you that they can ever be. So build your character. Another area is build your finances. Learn how to save up. To save up money. Learn how to make the money, how to save that money. Learn how to invest. Learn all these skills. Trust me, it's a bit trickier when you try to do it afterwards. Learn skills. Learn how to cook, how to save, doing dishes, how to do laundry, even if you're a man. There'll be a time in your marriage you won't always have a maid, and your wife may not always be there to do the housework. So if you didn't grow up in a home where they made you do housework, you use the time to learn. Just build simple skills, big skills, professional skills, develop skills. Learn how to be a secretary at a meeting, taking notes. Take time to learn how to do these things, chairing meetings. Just build skills in all the different areas of your life. I talked about building relationships. Use this time to make friends, lifelong friends. Even if you're an extrovert, and extroverts normally make friends all over the place. I was surprised to meet one who I met someone on a taxi, and we talked, and then we finally exchanged numbers. And somehow they never did, but they made friends in the in the short ride from town to Banda, and they became very good friends just like that, and never spoke again after. But even if you're that person, can you build lifelong friendships during this time when you're single? Friends who will take you places, friends who will help you be a better person. Don't look for friends who are just there for making noise. Use this time to build real friendships, people who will make you better, people whom you call on during bad times. And finally, use this time to prepare for marriage. Many years ago, Anita's husband, you have never picked up a book about marriage, yet you want to get married. You've never attended a training, seminar, talk or whatever on marriage, and yet you want to get married. You've never spoken to a married person about marriage, or even your own parents about marriage. But somehow you expect it will work. Many of us only know about marriage from TV, watching soaps, and we have this picture of marriage that is built from those, whatever those people wrote. Use this time to prepare for marriage. Teach yourself about marriage. Read books, attend seminars, make friends who are married, get to hear from them their stories, the mistakes they have made. Find people who've been married and successfully married for a long time, and get to hear from them. As you do this, avoid people who failed in their marriages and who have learned bad lessons from they could still be married, but they've learned bad lessons from marriage. Prepare for marriage. Start building up resources you need for marriage. If you have the finances, build a house. Buy that plot of land and start building the house. Don't just wait until you're married for someone to, I'm talking to the brothers. Prepare yourself for marriage. That's what I have. For me, all these are things that I did, and they helped me. Right now, I'm glad I know myself better. It has helped me to deal with things in my marriage that have come up in it's just 1 year down the road. But all the work that I did preparing myself during the time I was single have helped me. There have been so many potholes that we've met in this 1 year of marriage, and I'm just glad for some of the lessons I learned